Welcome to our virtual school board meeting Monday, October 4th. If you'd please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to make some opening comments before we begin with our meeting. We want to welcome everyone to this evening's school board meeting. On behalf of the board, I want to share that we intend to resume in-person meetings in the large group instruction room, also known as the LGI, on October 18th. We want to first remind everyone that our current policy regarding masks is that they be worn at all times when we are conducting our public meetings. If you are not willing to wear a mask on October 18th, we ask that you not come to the high school, but instead watch the stream version of the meeting. We also want to express to attendees that during the meetings leading up to September 7th, it was difficult for us to operate due to disruptions from our audience. We tolerated numerous outbursts and interruptions, but we cannot continue to operate that way. So we ask you to please be respectful of all board members, administrators, and fellow attendees for all future meetings. We are required to conduct our business in public. We prefer to do it in person, and we welcome diplomatic participation at the appropriate time. If, however, our audience chooses to heckle or disrupt the flow of our business meeting of the board, we will recommend that we return to Zoom meetings again for the foreseeable future. We are elected officials, and we are charged with ensuring the business of this board is conducted in a timely manner. Thank you for listening, and we hope we are able to move forward in a positive and constructive manner. Now, as to the resumption of public comments for this evening's meeting, anyone wishing to make a public comment may sign up to do so through the link on the front page of our website. At the appropriate times of the agenda, we will contact the interested party and allow them to share thoughts with the board with provided comments are limited to 3 minutes and are free of profanity or other inappropriate content. We will listen to public comments for 30 minutes. After the 30 minutes are up, I will ask the board if they wish to continue to hear further comments from the public. So with that, we will now turn it over to Dr. Baracco for agenda approval, deletions, additions.
Thank you, Mrs. Seuss. You do have an agenda that was sent to you in advance, so seek approval for that board meeting agenda.
So we have a motion by Mr. Marshall. And we have a second by Mrs. Kelly. With that, we will do a roll call vote. Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Dr. Medlin?
Aye.
Dr. Malco?
Aye.
Ms. Kelly?
Aye.
And I am an aye also. Thank you. Motion passes. We'll move on to correspondence. Mr. Marshall?
At this point, I have nothing in correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you. I will open up the for liaison committee updates. Mr. Marshall?
Under Personnel Interview Committee, there has been no action to take. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Medlin?
Nothing to report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Malco? Oh, you're muted.
I would like to remind everyone that on Saturday, November 6th, Lake Central Education Foundation will be sponsoring a 5K walk and in memory of Dr. Dana Less, former Lake Central student. So hopefully you can reserve some time to join us on that Saturday, November 6th.
Thank you. Mrs. Kelly?
Nothing to report this evening.
And I have nothing to report either. So we'll move on to our official school board business topics consent agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you again, Mrs. Seuss. Seek board approval for the minutes from the regular board meeting on the 20th, as well as an executive session on the 22nd, and then the approval of claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures that you received in your packet.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve all these.
We have a motion by, and we have a second by Mr. Marshall.
Yes, I second that motion.
All right, roll call vote. Mr. Marshall,
Aye.
Dr. Medlin,
Aye.
Dr. Malco,
Aye.
Mrs. Kelly,
Aye.
and I am an aye also. Motion passes. Thank you. And I believe we have somebody signed up for our public comments regarding action items.
Yes, we do. I'll call them right now.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, you're now on the Lake Central virtual board meeting. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, my mistake. I wanted to do comments at the end, so that was my mistake.
Okay, we'll call you back then.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Mrs. Castaneda, I assume nobody else has signed up?
No one else has signed up.
Thank you. We'll move on to our official school board business topics, regular agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you. So I just want to update the board. As you know, that we have posted our collective bargaining agreement to the website under important news. The first bullet that was completed on the 29th of September. Recall back to September 15th, we held the hearing that is the official opening of negotiations in a formal capacity. And I just want to remind the public that the final opportunity to comment on this year's contract will be at our next board meeting on October 18th. That meeting that will be held in public, and they'll be able to comment on it prior to the board taking a vote if they decide to take the vote. But just in a nutshell, I just want to refresh for the board. The state gave us a nice increase for this year. We have some additional money that we had not yet spent from our referendum. So our teachers on average will be getting a nice raise this year, an average of about $7,300. Our beginning teacher salary will break the $50,000 number to be $52,000 for this year, which is good when you consider what other individuals graduating colleges and universities with a bachelor's degree are earning nowadays. Couple other little things that we've increased, the curriculum work, increased the hourly rate from $25 to $30 an hour. Also increased the committee work from $14.50 an hour to $16 per hour. We have adjusted our coaching stipends to get them adjusted upward after 11 years of being frozen. So we use the conference averages, and then we also increased by 10% after we did a conference average calculation. We did that 10% additional because we were using last year's data, and we know that many districts are also increasing their extracurricular and coaching stipends as we speak. So we'll continue to track that data as we get it updated after everyone else does what they do, and we'll have that ready for future reference. We also, as you know, have an agreement with our union. Since members of the negotiating team are also on our benefits committee, we're unable to get our benefits, our healthcare plan renewal done in time to meet the statutory requirement of the state of Indiana on the negotiation front. So since members of that negotiating executive committee are also on the benefits committee, they agree that whatever we decide to make in terms of adjustments will have their blessing, because many of those people are on both committees. It's important to know that we expect little to no change for the benefit side or the employee contribution side to the plan for this year. The heavy work starts next Monday when we get our anthem renewal, and then we will continue to analyze our options for the 2022 calendar year on healthcare benefits. We're also continuing to work on classified staff raises. And so it is our intention to bring classified staff raises, our hourly folk, their raises to you on October 18th when we bring teacher raises. And so we got to run through the numbers on that. And as we get that closer to it, we will share with you what those numbers will likely be. And the same would go for our administrators who are not part of the collective bargaining agreement. We also want to give them an increase as well for this year. So that's my summary in a nutshell of where we're going on the big points with teachers. And we will be prepared to bring that to you formally on October 18th. Any questions at this time?
Cindy, do you want me to go ahead and speak?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, first of all, it's so exciting that after all these years of complaining to our legislators and all the persons that be, that we have our educators at a point where they're treated as professionals. I really appreciate that model that you've come up with. And I appreciate the fact that you're doing everyone together with the concept of the raises. That's much cleaner, I believe. So Larry, do you anticipate, or Dr. Bracco, I should say, do you anticipate that Anthem costs will have a huge increase, or do you have any idea?
Well, there's two pieces of that healthcare, right? How you perform as an organization,
Right.
And then just the general trend of healthcare costs. And we've performed, as we have for the past several years, better than similar plans and similar groups within the Anthem network. But what we don't control is the cost of healthcare. And so if the cost of healthcare goes up 12% and we have a good year, we still have to take some kind of an increase or eat reserves or cut benefits. But we think where we are with our reserves that we will have little to no change to our healthcare plan based on the way we performed the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay, that's very exciting. And I know that is a reflection of all the effort that you and your wellness committee and your benefits committee have placed on teachers to be a part of the team. The only thing that
let me add though, that it really is the members who have become better consumers of healthcare, making better choices, not being frivolous with the way they choose to go for their provider, i.e. emergency rooms, as we did back in the old days. So there really should be a lot of credit to the people who are representing their buildings on the benefits committee, because they are a resource for information, but then most importantly, the members who are making good decisions.
Yes, I've heard you mention that on several occasions, and that is very true. The only thing, and I know it really is not directly related to teacher increases, but I would love if we could do something to support our young individuals, our early intervention program. I know that we really don't have what we used to have. I know we have nothing at all similar to what Crown Point has, but I'd sure like to see us do something that's quasi in the middle somewhere there. So that's my final comment on that. But thank you for the information.
Sure. Anything else from any other member? Okay, I will carry on then with my second item, and that's just to begin a discussion about our return to meeting in public. And so I did send you some talking points, and some of these things, I think I speak for most of us, and some of them I may only be speaking for myself. So you may need to step in and clarify, and feel free to do so at any time. But it's my opinion that whether we Google Meet or do so in person, that we should do our best to have public comment. I think it's important that we hear from our constituents. We're testing out this option this evening while we're in a virtual format, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Public comments, for some districts, they only do it on action items. They don't want to hear over and over again that people don't like masks, for instance, because until it's on the table, They just don't want to keep hearing it. That's debatable, and that's something that we as a organization need to, contemplate. But whether we limit public comments, allow everybody to speak, or cut them off only when they become redundant, that's also something that we need to think about moving forward. We've done a great job, in my opinion, of always respecting the people who show up at our meetings and giving them a chance to talk, even when they do become redundant. The only unfortunate part is recently we've had people who, and it wasn't always the speakers, mind you, but we've had an audience that wasn't conducting themselves in a way that I think you would consider to be totally tactful in a public setting. I do think we need to consider banning all sorts of noisemakers like the bullhorn we saw. We don't need people to be able to project their voice louder than when it's their turn to step up to the microphone and address the board. I don't think we need it to turn into, that sort of cheering section feel. And then, something that a lot of people have said to me, including people who are totally against the mask policy, have said to me, you need to start removing the people who are not behaving properly. And so our board needs to contemplate that. That's something that I've not been in favor of in the past because, until this year, we've been able to grind through the meetings and tolerate it to a point. But now it seems like some folks don't have a limit on what they're willing to say, how loud they're willing to yell, or what names they're willing to scream into people's face, such as what I experienced in August. But we need to be thinking about that. The key is, though, we really need to make sure our public knows we need to be able to conduct the business of the board. That means we can't have the outbursts that we were tolerating before, and because we just can't get our work done. And, we're known in the region for a good company to work for. In other words, when our vendors come and do a job, they know when they submit the bill after we've triple checked that it's correct, we pay them in a timely manner. It wasn't always that way around Lake Central, but that's something that's important to us. And so in order to maintain that reputation, you need to be able to make sure we can get together and you can approve all those claims. But I think the biggest challenge for us is going to be to figure out how we get the people who say they're for us, they just disagree with us on certain things, how we get to have a more civil discourse when we're in the room together. I think it's important that if people are hearing me right now say I'd rather let everybody speak, that is dependent upon everyone speaking respectfully, and the people who it's not their turn, when someone else is speaking, whether they agree with that person or not, that they're quiet and they're respectful the way we are on stage when we let other people speak. So having said all that, I really do think that, we need to give fair warning to people that if it starts turning into that bedlam that we've seen in the past, I suspect we could end up back here on a Zoom, which would not be my preference, but it's preferable to not be able to smoothly conduct business. So I'd now open it up to the board for any other comments and other things you want to discuss or consider before we lay out exactly how we're going to conduct business on the 18th. And we don't have to decide tonight, by the way. We just need to be thinking about how we want to do that.
I agree with everything that you've said. I'm not in favor of physically or asking anybody to leave. I've spoken to our SROs and they're not in favor of that either. So, who would be tasked with that? I just don't have that answer, but I agree with everything that you've said thus far.
I agree with everything you said as well. And I do think it is important to listen to what the public has to say. And there needs to be parameters upon, what type of behavior is acceptable. And I think you laid that out pretty well.
Cindy, can you hear me?
You go right ahead, Howard.
Okay, I'll jump in here. I concur with what Dr. Bracco stated. I would like to add the emphasis that a school board meeting, hearing public comments, is just that. We listen to them, to have a dialogue or intercourse of conversation back and forth between school board members and or the audience is not the way I view a school board meeting. We can listen, take it into consideration, think about it, come back later, etc. This is not a town hall meeting where people's comments go back and forth. But generally speaking, I'm in favor also of listening to these comments. There are a lot of thoughts being reflected out there we may not agree with, but we need to hear them. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. I have to basically mirror what Howard just said. I feel the same. I agree with Dr. Bracco. I'm all for moving back to in-person meetings with public comment in a respectful manner. My concern has been how heated things have gotten at the end of the meeting, after the meeting. So that's just my one concern. I don't know how we handle that because, of course, we do not want to see parents being hauled out of the room. So I don't know what the answer is to that other than just please, please, please asking the parents to just be respectful and to keep things calm if we could. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Seuss, do you have am I okay to speak? Okay. You know, Dr. Bracco, I think you've outlined some good standards for us to follow. And I think that is what we've always been about over the years is we have embraced public comments. And it's a good thing. I mean, we need to hear from our public. We need to hear what their thoughts are, even though, as Howard says, we may not agree with them. We still need to listen to them. Mm-hmm. And when the conversation, you're right on that. It's not a conversation between the people in the audience and those of us on the board. It's a time for us to listen. Similarly, it should be that same type of response through the emails that we receive. We just appreciate that people are sharing their concerns with us, even though we may not be in agreement with everything. Now my question to you, Dr. Bracco, would be, would you entertain then a meeting for us to get together and brainstorm, or is this something your administrative team will come up with and recommend, or how will we proceed with this as far as the guidelines for the public meetings?
I think I laid it out. I mean, I think we go back to a public meeting. I think you as a board have to decide, do you want to continue to take comments at the end of the meeting on anything about anything? Or do you want to limit it to action items like many districts around the state do? And then do you want to have a limit on it? And, you know, it's always a tricky when you extend, because how much redundancy do you listen to before you stop? Without someone saying, well, that's insulting. Maybe I was going to say something different. And so, but those are decisions you all have to make. And I think Mrs. Seuss said again tonight, her policy is going to be to ask, do you want to extend? I suppose if there's 10 people that make a comment and 8 of the 10 make a comment about masks and 2 people talk about the Career Center, maybe the response is, we're willing to hear from any other folks who have something besides the mask. We think we've heard enough about that topic for this evening. So I think that's one final thing the board may want to contemplate. But I think the structure should go back to pretty much what we've done previously. We just need to be ready to, tell folks that we are done with the complete lack of decorum at our meetings. We don't want to run meetings like that, and we don't have to. And so, we'll give them time to speak if they're respectful when we're speaking. That's what I would like to see us do. But again, it's your meeting. I'm just one of the players in the meeting.
It's right.
So you have to really decide on a couple of those topics how you want to play. And, I think that if we go back in 2 weeks and do it the way we've historically done it, if you're going to change from that discussion would probably be best served right in front of everybody on the 18th. That's my opinion.
And okay, that was my question. So then basically what we would be doing, correct me if I'm wrong, is we would be modifying or making adjustments to our current school board policy to reflect those items that you read off that we'd like to see included. Like the noisemakers and those types of things, and correct?
Yeah, we're not that specific in that policy, but
Yeah, well, we didn't know we'd need to be either.
right. I mean, I don't think it's something that prior to recently was happening. So
Yeah. So then am I correct in understanding that on the 18th, if we meet and we go back to our normal routine and we have chaos and conclude the meeting and then just meet the very next whatever, we don't have to go through this. We can just conclude the meeting and reschedule, correct?
I think technically you'd be taking a recess and then you'd have to quickly ask, can people meet at this time? And if you get 3 people, and then you'd come back and finish the business of the board, whatever time you picked.
All right, I just want to make sure that we have a plan. I mean, not that I'm thinking, sorry about that. Not that I'm thinking negative things will happen, but I want to be prepared. What would we do if? So it's good to know then we would just adjourn or recess and call for another meeting time. Sorry about my dog. I'm so sorry.
That's okay, but let's hope for the best.
Yes.
We've had meetings for years where people have disagreed, but maintained respect for the people on stage and for the other folks in the audience. And until they prove otherwise, let's stay positive and hope that we can get back to that.
All right, any other further discussion? Thank you, Dr. Rocco. So we'll move on to our Director of Human Resources Personnel, Mrs. Mucha.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sues. We are recommending that the following personnel items be approved, but I do want to bring your attention to 3 people who have quite a few years of serving our LC children. Karen Starr with 28 years of service, Ed Vargo with 28 years of service, and Ann Van Ham with 23 years of service. That's a lot of service to our LC children.
That is a lot of service. Do we have a motion? A motion by Dr. Malco. And a second by Mr. Marshall.
Yes, second.
All right. We'll do a roll call. Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Dr. Medlin?
Aye.
Dr. Malco?
Aye, but I had a quick, never mind. I'll talk to you later, Mrs. Mucha. Thank you. Yes, aye.
Ms. Kelly?
Aye.
And I am an aye also. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. My second item is we're experiencing some difficulty in attracting new employees in these substitute groups, and they're increasing competition from other area schools and businesses. So I am asking for the following increases for various substitute positions. It would start September 28th, which would have been the first day of the payday, and it would be paid out on 10/20 if you approve. And that page is in your packet.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin and a second by Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
Yes.
We will do a roll call. Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Dr. Medlin?
Aye.
Dr. Malco?
Absolutely aye.
Mrs. Kelly?
Aye as well.
And I am an aye also. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank
Mrs.
you very
Mucha.
much.
All right, we'll move on to our Director of Primary.
President Suze, I had a question for Ms. Mucha. How are we doing with bus drivers? Because I see that some districts are having very extreme problems, but we seem to be doing okay. Am I right?
We are hanging on by our fingertips. I will say that our director has to, and our mechanics have been driving for substitutes. We had a couple of trainees. One did drop out, so we were left with just one or two, but he was interviewing some more people this week. So he keeps at it and keeps trying to get some more people. It has just been difficult.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes, in watching the Chicagoland news, I noticed that there are a couple of school districts, if not CPS directly, that was entertaining using National Guard personnel. Is any indicators in the state of Indiana that's been looked at?
I don't think we've gotten to that point, especially with us. We've been pretty good keeping it as long as we're being very careful, but there hasn't been any mention of using National Guard in Indiana.
Okay, thank you.
And President Seuss, I had a really cool experience today. I was at the high school and what's wrong? Oh, yeah, I was at the high school for a meeting today, and it was just when dismissal was going on. So I was out back where all the buses, I mean, they're so well organized, and I just am so impressed with the way that dismissal went today. And bus drivers are a really cool group of people. They just love our kids, and they're the first ones they see in the morning, and we are very, very blessed to have such great ones. I just wanted to share that positive.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, we'll move on to our Director of Primary Education, Dr. Bracy.
Good evening. I am coming to you tonight seeking your approval for the professional leave request you have received in your packets.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin and a second by Mr. Marshall.
Move to approve.
Second here.
All right, we'll do a roll call. Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Dr. Medlin?
Aye.
Dr. Melko?
Aye.
Mrs. Kelly?
Aye.
And I am an aye also. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now our Director of Secondary Education, Mrs. Castaneda.
Thank you. I'm seeking your approval this evening for the professional leave request that you received in your board packet.
We have a motion by Mrs. Kelly and I'm sorry, Mr. Marshall, did you motion or?
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Kelly. Do we have a second? A second by Dr. Malco. And we will do a roll call. Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Dr. Medlin?
Aye.
Dr. Malco?
Aye.
Mrs. Kelly?
Aye.
I am an aye also, so your motion passes. Thank you. Now we move all the way to public comments. I will turn that over to you, Mrs. Castaneda.
Thank you. We have one individual signed up, so I'll call that person now. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, can you please state your name and address?
Sure, it's Laura Dubish, 8897 Winding Trail, St. John, Indiana.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I feel special being the only one who signed up tonight. First, I just want to say, as far as being civil, I think that it's completely attainable. And I just want on the record, the bullhorn thing was not anyone who was a part of the Lake Central majority group. Other groups have kind of, at least one other group kind of glommed on to our group. So we all fully agree there shouldn't be a bullhorn and people yelling. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. As far as another thing, it helps when we feel our group is being heard and given genuine reasons for the quarantine and mask mandate. There seems to be a lot of misunderstanding on this. And firstly, of course, keeping kids in school was the #1 priority. And this masking was based on the premise that if we didn't mask, we'd be quarantining like crazy and kids would be missing school again. So this quarantine thing is not a law for LC to follow. This is guidance. The only law pertaining to these guidelines is reporting communicable diseases, IC 16412, which, believe it or not, is not law for schools either. That is a law required for MDs. Here, I'll read it. Reporting is required by licensed physicians, hospital administrators, labs, directors of medical labs. I'm not saying we shouldn't report. I think schools should report. I'm just clarifying what is law and what is not, and what has driven so much fear about our protocols for COVID. So knowing that the quarantining is not a law, because Griffith is not doing it, I'm sure you all got my email. They haven't been doing it. They're going on their local data. And they're reporting to parents who are making decisions what to do with their children. But our local data has never been made available.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Okay, our local data wasn't made available by Dr. Vivi Lala like it was last year. So we did a public access complaint and found out it's not in fact being held up at the state level like Vivi Lala had claimed. It's being held up at the county level. We found this out through a public access complaint. So I did better than the county data, and I used LC's own data and own population. I sent you all that too. And our 3-week average positivity rate is 0.00.
Thank you, that's 3 minutes.
0.0005%, which is 5 people per week out of 10,650.
Thank you, that's 3 minutes.
So can I just finish this sentence, please? It's a very important point. So since we didn't have the local data, we used LC data, which is even more pinpointed to our specific LC family, which puts us literally in the blue. So again, that's the local data, and our county law was the councilmen vote on whether to use county mandates or to use our own local data. They voted that we use local data, which means that you all are supposed to be using local data, not county data. So the data's right there, LC's own data and own population. So my question is, will you consider using our own data? There's no data better.
Thank you. Ms. Castaneda, do we have anybody else signed up?
No, no one is signed to speak.
All right, so we will move on to board comments and consideration of future agenda items. Mr. Marshall. You need to unmute yourself, Mr. Marshall.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. I apologize. I thought I cleared that. Other board members may also have this feeling, but it was I was pleased to see the recognition of a couple of items. Number one, our SROs were acknowledged as being a valuable asset to the Lake Central community and our students. It highlighted our direct SRO from Dyer, Jerry Patrick, and did mention the other individuals involved from the surrounding communities. And also the article today of our athletic director and his family being instrumental in supporting and being an integral part of our soccer programs, both on the male side and the female side. And also I'm going to ask Janice Malkow to maybe bring this issue up. She had an email that we picked up on indicating that Richard Moore was being acknowledged for special recognition. Janice, if you're going to speak, will you address that? Thank you.
I will certainly do that right now so I don't forget. But Mr. Moore is the Administrator of the Year for the state of Indiana, and he's been recognized by the Indiana School Counselors Association. And then I noticed that Mrs. Bowman over at Clark Middle School was also, I believe, honored as counselor for the state of Indiana by the Indiana State Counselors Association. So, yeah. And Howard, Mr. Marshall, may I ask, is that article about our athletic director in today's paper? Okay. All right. Thank you.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Medlin?
I'm just really happy that within the business department and with the administration that the pay scale was changed so that the teachers, are able to realize raises, and that hopefully, the same type of thing will be able to be done for the staff. I'm very happy about all of that. That's all.
Thank you. Dr. Malco?
All right. Yes, a lot of cool celebrations going on at Lake Central, and it's a really positive place to be. Good feelings. And there was a proposal that was sent to us by Mrs. Kelly. And so when we're talking about future agenda items, or Mrs. Suze or President Suze, if we want to do an executive session, I'd like for us to have some dialogue relating to that proposal that Mrs. Kelly sent to us, I believe Friday or Saturday. Thank you. That's it. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Mrs. Kelly?
Yeah, I'd just like to congratulate our retirees and congratulate them and thank them for their years of service. It's appreciated. Enjoy your retirement. That's all.
Well, y'all touched on everything I was going to say. Shout out to Officer Patrick. I know there was a video included with his article. So if you have 6-7 minutes, please watch that. And, Mr. Enyart and his kids on the field, that was good to see. And good luck to all the teams going into regional, sectionals, and semi-state. Good luck to all them. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Baracco.
Thank you. Our next meeting is, as we've said earlier in the meeting, on the 18th. And to address Dr. Malco's request, we can put it on the agenda for when we would consider changing our mitigation efforts whenever the board decides that discussion should take place. But I just want to say one more time for the record, I do not believe that quarantine is optional based on the guidance I have received. I believe that quarantining and reporting are mandates. And until the governor, the General Assembly, or the state attorney general tell me otherwise, who I think are the three most powerful bodies governing our state, that's what I'm going to follow. And to be honest, all but a handful of districts in the state are following that. So I just want to say that for the record. But we really can't do that in executive session, Dr. Malco. That needs to be done in public because it's not the type of school safety measure that has to be held in confidence like some of your lockout drills and some of those other things that we do. So weigh in the meantime, when you check in with me in the next week or so, let me know if you want to have that discussion already on the 18th, or if you think it can wait till the 1st in November. I think it depends partly on, we barely got under that 200 infections per 100,000 residents. We went from 201 to 193. That's how we got back to yellow. So, we're barely in yellow. So I don't know if we need to really do it in the next 2 weeks, but that day could be coming when we get back to blue and we have to figure out what we want to do if the state doesn't guide us on what to do. And I'm still hopeful that we will get some guidance, because I think when we were back in June and early July, when we were sitting solid blue across the state, everyone was ready to go back to school like we did in 2019-20. And so let's keep our fingers crossed that as the data changes, not just at Lake County, but across the state as we come back down, and it feels like we are coming down on infection, that we get some additional guidance.
Dr. Malco?
Right. Dr. Baracco, So our fall break falls the last day of October and the first day of November. Is that right? Am I remembering correctly? Okay. Mrs. Kelly said yes. Okay. So I would anticipate that when the students come back into the building after that fall break, are you anticipating there'd be a surge in cases?
Not necessarily.
Okay. And
I don't think it's like Christmas break when a lot of people travel.
Oh, okay. All right.
Or spring break.
Yeah, and I heard another rumor today, and I was wondering if anybody on the board knows if this is true or what. But, the news is reporting that Indiana State, IU, Purdue, and all these places say students must be vaccinated before they return to school. But evidently, there's no accountability in place. In other words, all the students do is fill out a paper saying that they are vaccinated, and they don't provide the proof of the vaccination.
That's not how it played at IU, but it's my understanding that IU is the only one that required the vaccine. Purdue required masking indoors. Ball State required you to be negative when you showed up for campus. And I think they're doing periodic random tests at Ball State like they did at IU last year.
So IU is the only one that requires.
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. But you don't know if that accountability piece is in the back door then? I don't.
The people I know had to show their card.
Oh, okay. That answers my question.
All right, any other further discussion? All right, do we have a motion for adjournment? Mr. Marshall?
Yes, I move for adjournment.
Do we have a second? Ms. Kelly? We have a second. All right, Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Dr. Madlin?
Aye.
Dr. Malco? And Ms. Kelly?
Aye.
And I am an aye also. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good night.